Good evening, good afternoon, and good morning to all, and welcome to the second open webinar on gender mainstreaming, working to achieve gender equality. My name is Leticia Berrisbeitia. I am the Capacity Development Analyst at the UN Women Training Center, and this presentation is also a sneak peek or a brief overview of the upcoming course on gender mainstreaming that will take place this fall. As you can see on your screen, our presentation today will be introducing the concept of gender mainstreaming. We will also talk about gender mainstreaming in policies and programs. And finally, we will offer you an overview of what our blended course on gender mainstreaming will be about, and also about how is it organized. Before we get started, a few remarks on how webinars work. You will notice there is a toolbar at the right side of your screen. There is a space there for typing in your questions. Please know you can type questions and comments at any time during the webinar. This is important because we will be keeping an eye on them and compiling them for the panelists to answer at the end of the presentation. I would also like to inform you that this session is being recorded and it will be posted later today or very soon in our UN Women Training Center YouTube channel. So I am very glad to present today's panelist, who is Alicia Seifert, Training Program Coordinator of the UN Women Training Center. Alicia is specialized in education, as well as in gender and public policy. She has over 10 years' experience in gender issues, and she will be one of the blended course facilitators next September. Without further ado, I would like to hand over now to Alicia. So if you allow me one moment now. Alicia, you're now presenter.
Thank you very much, Leticia. Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon all over the world. Thank you very much for joining us today in our webinar on gender mainstreaming, which is, as Leticia well said, also a sneak peek into our course that we will be having in this fall, and which is also a blended course that has both an online and a face-to-face session. The face-to-face session, as you know, will be held in Bangkok. So we will be hoping to be able to both respond to the needs in Southeast Asia and all the regions, and also other participants who might want to join us there. So as Leticia well said, let me show you today, our presentation will have 3 parts. First of all, we will go into what gender mainstreaming is. And afterwards, we will go a little bit into mainstreaming gender into policies, programs, and institutions. And this is the basis also for our course in Bangkok. And also afterwards, we will look at the calendar, see what the timeline looks like for the course, and to have a little bit more detail. Please do write your questions in the question panel. We will be compiling and we'll be very happy to respond to them afterwards. So what is gender mainstreaming? As you know, gender mainstreaming is a strategy to achieve gender equality. So we have one goal, which is gender mainstreaming. Let me see, maybe you are seeing part of my, let me see if I can hide this control panel. There we are. I think now you cannot see it. So we have that, as I was saying, gender mainstreaming is a strategy. It's not the goal in itself. It's a strategy to achieve gender equality. Gender mainstreaming as a strategy was proposed first in 1995 it has been proposed for many years, but one key moment, one milestone was in the Beijing Conference for Women in 1995 that was proposed as a key strategy to achieve gender equality. In 1997, the Economic and Social Council of the UN proposed in its agreed conclusions proposed a very good comprehensive definition for gender mainstreaming that sets this as the process of assessing the implications for women and men of any planned action. This could include legislation, policies, or programs in all areas and at all levels. And it's a strategy for making women's as well as men's concerns and experiences an integral dimension of the design, implementation, monitoring, and evaluation of policies and programs in all political, economical, and societal spheres so that both women and men benefit equally from development and inequality is not perpetuated. The ultimate goal, as we were saying, is gender equality. So, I'm sorry, here. So also, and this is something that the Beijing Platform for Action sets very clearly, gender mainstreaming takes a dual strategy. There can be gender targeted approaches, gender focused programs, if inequality demands it, if there is a specific situation that demands very specific there's a situation of inequality that demands a targeted approach. And there also might be sectoral approaches that need a gender mainstreaming strategy to be integrated. Are very discriminated and or suffer discrimination, or there's a situation where we have to respond to women or to men's needs in a very specific way. And within men and women, we could have a wide variety of and diversity. We could have also a certain age group, an ethnic group, indigenous people, a certain region in one country that demands a targeted approach. Or we could have a sectoral approach. We could have just a policy that is being implemented. We could have road construction or agricultural policies to promote entrepreneurship or private sector development. That we just need to consider what the needs are, and in this way we need to sort of integrate the different needs to have equal opportunities and equal results. So a little bit more about what gender mainstreaming is and what it is not. One thing it is not, it's just adding a women's component, or just saying that something is with the aim of benefiting men, women. Of course, we want to benefit both men and women, but it's not just adding women into the whole mixture. And it goes beyond also increasing women's participation. Women's participation and all stakeholders' participation in programs and policies is important, but it's not just that. What it is, it's more about bringing the experience, the knowledge, and the interests of women and men that they might have on the development agenda. It also means that we will eventually modify the development agenda so that men and women are benefited equally. Many times when we start mainstreaming gender into a program, we realize that to really tackle and respond to the needs, we need to, the objectives have to change. Besides the way in which we're going to implement the project. We'll go a little bit into that in the next slide. So it's also about transforming social and institutional unequal structures. So there might be short-term goals in the short term where we tackle sort of the symptoms, the most superficial inequalities, but eventually gender mainstreaming will help us go into a more transformative process of change where the social and the institutional, the structural, the structures can need to be changed, which involve the relationships between men and women and the distribution of power and of assets and as well the results of these processes. So, as I was saying, mainstreaming is a process. The results that we are aiming to achieve are gender equality and women's empowerment. And there are different aspects to consider in this process. The first of all, we'll start with the gender context. And the gender, we need to, when we are assessing the context of intervention, the initial situation that we want to respond to, we have to bring in, through the gender analysis, we have to bring in the inequalities, the gender components, the relationships, the stereotypes, and the roles. We have to consider all what the situation of women and men are separately. We have to consider not only the situation of women and men, but also of children, of aging, ethnic groups, religious, racial, socioeconomic. There are many different other categories that will give us more light, will bring us more light, and will paint a clearer picture of what the situation is. Also, so this gender analysis that we do a lot at the beginning of our program, that we bring in to our context analysis, has to be included throughout the project cycle. Also, the moment of defining objectives, setting activities and identifying resources, monitoring evaluation, and finally evaluation, of course. So mainstreaming also means resource allocation. And here I would like to point out something interesting, which means that many times we don't need additional resources, but we do need to distribute them differently. So it's important to be able to allocate resources, financial resources, human resources, different type of input that a project or policy will need. And it's important to be able to track and monitor and build on accountability on these resources. We'll go later into the gender responsive budgeting, but having gender markers, being able to track specific allocations within budgets also helps build accountability, and then have a more specific response. We ensure that gender is incorporated more thoroughly into the program or project. Gender focal points or units. Some research and studies over specific projects show that if we have a gender focal point or we have a gender specialist, there's a stronger degree, a stronger gender mainstreaming process in projects. And this is important to highlight because it means that allocating specialists will help guide the process within a project. At the same time, we should always consider and remember that it's not just a responsibility of the gender focal point or the gender unit or the gender specialist to mainstream gender. Now let the gender person do it. It's everybody's responsibility, but having somebody who really is knowledgeable and experienced on gender equality and on the subject matter of the project or the program or the policy is a great it can bring added value to the process. So it's something that strengthens implementation. Then, of course, women's participation in decision making. A project that has that has gender mainstream into it will have a different approach to the implementation. It will not be a top-down approach, but more participatory process where not only women but all stakeholders are involved and can make decisions regarding this important process. But also, gender has to be included in the result monitoring system. And of course, if we have included gender equality at the beginning, at the outcome and output level, at the results level, then we will be able to track the results and the impact of this process. Afterwards, so as I was pointing out before, gender responsive budgeting helps us give additional accountability. When there are funds allocated for a specific objective, it's the obligation, the accountability, the commitment is of course stronger. So, as I was pointing out before, gender mainstreaming does not necessarily mean an additional investment, but it does mean that we have to change priorities. And this changing of priorities could be enough to support a change process within a project to make it more gender sensitive and more gender responsive. There's not one recipe. It's more like an art where we have to mix in the right ingredients and paint all the right colors to paint the picture that we want. Each case must be evaluated and assessed separately, and the right interventions, although we do have good practices and we can relate to them and think about different processes that could be applied. We have experiences and we can apply lessons learned. There's a certain uniqueness to each context and each situation, the resources and the possibilities. So it's not always something that we can just tick boxes and comply with whatever we want to do. It's not just applying. It's not sequential necessarily. Certain steps might be taken simultaneously and different things have to be addressed, although we can have a checklist to remember all the different aspects that we need to consider. So a lot of it has to do with thinking about the situations in a different way, putting them on our gender lenses, and being able to read the context differently, and then consequentially act differently. So if we could say, quoting others that have said this previously, if we want different results, we should not always do the same things, or we should not do the things in the same way. So we have to think creatively about how to implement transformative change. So in the course, we look into the blended course that we have. We look into gender mainstreaming in policies, programs, and institutions. In public policies, we might look at different sectoral approaches and how we need to consider how gender is integrated, how the different needs of men and women and different groups are assessed, and then how we can respond to this through public policy, and how these policies can bring different situations as well. Also in programs and institutions, we look at different frameworks that can help us understand what happens in the institution and how to analyze and include and promote change. We will look into that in a moment. We like to look into non-traditional sectors and aspects and think how gender can be included into these non-traditional sectors. Do we want to look into energy, for example, energy, transport? It's very easy to understand how gender is included in certain sectors, such as education or health, but we try to look in this course a little bit more in depth into the sectors that are not so obvious, because we think that these are the ones that can bring greater challenge to participants, and we want to look into in more depth. So regarding institutions, we look both at the public and private sector. We look at different frameworks that have been used. For example, we have the UN system-wide action plan for gender equality and women's empowerment in the UN system. This is one framework we look at. Other tools that we use are, for example, is the participatory gender audit that was developed by the International Labour Organization, the ILO. Then there are different initiatives, for example, the Impact 10 by 10 by 10 of the He for She challenge from UN Women. This is an initiative to gain further momentum in advancing gender equality and women's political and economic empowerment. The initiative, the Impact 10 by 10 by 10, was launched as a 1 year long pilot effort more than a year ago now, to engage 10 governments, 10 corporations, and 10 universities as instruments of change and implement actions internally. Here you have in the slide different companies where this initiative was included, and I wanted to bring just one today, which is Twitter. And this is just to show like the different aspects that we look into and the different initiatives and different possibilities really that we look into in our course. So Twitter took part in the He for She 10 by 10 by 10 initiative, and some are committed to leverage their platform to drive towards the He for She targets, to support programs to build the pipeline of women and increase gender diversity across the tech industry, and also to increase the representation of women at Twitter through a review of all practices. So here are some of the actions that have been taken. And I want to point out that just as Twitter is in the He for She platform, in the internet, all this information is available not only for Twitter, but all the companies that have made this commitment. So some of the actions taken is implementing work-life balance policies and programs, to pay parental leave benefits, which give mothers in the US up to 20 weeks of full paid leave. This is not something that happens across all sectors. Holding roundtables also to bring together women around the company who are either going out on leave or just returning. Provision of medical grade pumps in the mothers' nursing rooms. So providing benefits for nursing mothers so that they can have a better work-life balance. And also they provide child care, pet care, senior care, and home care at no cost. So these are some initiatives that one company is taking to include gender equality, to make their own company more equitable. So these are some of the things that we look into also and we analyze and reflect more. What are the strategies? Which strategies have been more cost effective, and what are the results that they are bringing? So a little bit more about the course, certain details and aspects. So as you know, the course starts on the 18th of September and has a 4-week-long online phase, which is moderated. The course takes part in the training center, the UN Women Training Center e-learning campus. And each week we tackle different topics. So we can go into the basic concepts, the gender analysis, and we can start looking at gender mainstreaming in programs, policies, and institutions. During the online phase, we have for readings to complete, reading materials, online forums for discussion, and also webinars that bring in the specific specialists to have a specific look into different topics. Starting on Monday, the 16th of October and finalizing on the 20th of October, we have our face-to-face session, which, as I mentioned before, will be held in Bangkok. This is our fall course, and the course has basically 4 modules. One is on basic concepts. The second one is gender mainstreaming in programs and projects, and the project cycle. Module 3 is gender mainstreaming in public policies, and module 4 is gender mainstreaming in institutions. So we close the face-to-face also forward-looking and looking at the different actions for change that each participant can take in this course. This is a little bit of the overview. We will soon have in our online page the details of where in Bangkok the course will be held in case it is of interest. So we have had a few courses on gender mainstreaming, but already had one spring course in Geneva this year. We have had very good feedback from participants, and also are very glad to be able to learn and improve the course every time we implement it, of course. But we really try to bring in concepts and practical approaches so that the theoretical frameworks and the actions can be linked, and they can be and we can have a real hands-on experience, and that participants can leave with tools, with knowledge, with different skills and competencies that are needed to implement the course. So I think now I will pass on to Leticia. I'm sure that a lot of participants have questions, and we will be very happy to respond to them.
Thank you, Alicia. Thank you so much for this enlightening presentation about mainstreaming basic concepts and the overview of our course. We have we have some we have a comment by one of our participants, but I'm going to read it. And in the meantime, I would like to remember all participants that on the right side of your screen, you can type in all your comments and questions. So we have a bit more time to answer them. So please feel free to jump in and ask your questions to Alicia, so we can answer them. So Alicia, our first question today is well, it's a comment by a participant that says that he can only join the online course in September and not attend the face-to-face. This is only also something. Here it is. Sorry. Okay. This is also something that comes up during the on the emails, that people wonders, participants are asking us frequently if it's possible to do only the face-to-face session or only the online session. So I believe it's a good opportunity to respond on why do we do a blended course and what's the opportunity of having these two phases.
Okay, thank you, Leticia. First, I wanted to apologize. I know that there has been some difficulties in hearing. Sometimes the connection has gone out a bit. I'm sorry for this, and I hope that in the end the messages were conveyed, but I will be very glad to respond, to repeat if anything needs further clarification. So we really do a blended course. We chose this modality to have first online and then face-to-face because we felt that there was, I mean, even with this like 4 week plus one, we think there's so much to do. There's so many topics to tackle, so many issues and difficulties, the challenges that we need to address, the different concepts, the experiences are also so rich that we think it's important to be able to have the whole group together first in the online to make sure that the group is also evens up differences, that we can have a more, I don't want to say standard, but that we have a more equal level, that we're all more or less, we will all bring our diverse points of view, experiences, and knowledge and backgrounds, but we still more or less, everybody and has the same understanding of topics. So I think this is very important. And then during the face-to-face, we come back to work in more practical terms, to go more into the analysis of the public policy of the projects. So this is why we really need to have both sessions. We have had a lot of demand on just online, if it's possible to go into the online. I want to point out that we had the first one in Geneva, now we're doing it in Bangkok. We will try to do in different regions so that it's easier for participants, because we know it's difficult sometimes to travel to a specific location and stay there for a week, but we think it's easier if it's closer. So, so we will next year we will be going to Africa and to Latin America as well. We want to keep this regional approach, but also try to bring in as many different experiences as possible. If we see that there is a lot of demand for just online phases, we might even think about doing a moderated one, just like a longer, more challenging maybe, but just a moderated one. This is something that we might evaluate also.
Perfect.
So I hope this responds a little bit this question.
Thank you, Alicia. Yes, I believe it does. So allow me to read more of the questions from participants tonight.
Mm-hmm.
We have some more comments. Great introduction. Thank you from Perla Buenrostro. Looking forward to take it. So we have another question here. Hello, I joined a few minutes ago, and due to internet access, could you kindly give a summary of the first hour to talk today? Well, maybe this is a bit ambitious, but maybe we can provide a bit of a summary of the gender mainstreaming definition and the objective of the course. Alicia, maybe you
Yes.
can reply this, and I copy this on the
Yeah.
screen in the meantime.
Yeah, definitely. So during the first part of our presentation, we went into the basic concepts of gender mainstreaming, and we looked at the first definition, that the first and still very much valid definition of gender mainstreaming, that the ECOSOC, the Economic and Social Council of the UN, of the United Nations, put forward in 1997, which is 20 years ago. And after 20 years, we're still struggling with many of these issues, and we're still struggling, and we have many challenges to implement gender mainstreaming. We also have a lot of knowledge gained and a lot of good practices and a lot of lessons learned. But mainly, basically, the definition that the ECOSOC Council put forward is that mainstreaming a gender perspective is a process of assessing the implications of men and women of any planned action, including legislation, policies, or programs, in any areas and at all levels. it is a strategy, and this is something that we will always like stress a lot. It is a strategy to achieve gender equality, for making the concerns and experiences of men as well as of women an integral part of the design, implementation, monitoring, and evaluation of policies and programs in all political, economic, and societal spheres, so that both men and women benefit equally from development and inequality is not perpetuated. The ultimate goal of gender mainstreaming is to achieve gender equality. And we have to think also of the dual strategy that the Beijing platform presents, that includes both gender mainstreaming and focused projects, focused programs or projects or strategies in certain specific topics. And I know that there is a question, Leticia, about the linkages between gender mainstreaming and gender-based violence. And I think this is very interesting, because although gender-based violence or violence which sometimes is equal to to violence against women and girls, but might have other nuances and technicalities also, mainstreaming gender equality into different policies can also help prevent and respond better to, or give better services to, women who have been victims of violence. Or we could think about prevention and increasing security and preventing violence against women and girls. And one of the programs that UN Women is now implementing globally is Safe Cities. In the Safe Cities program, all gender considerations are taken in planning transport, in planning infrastructure, in the security, in justice sector. So it's all considered so that certain specific sectoral approaches can have gender mainstream into them. So this also supports the elimination of violence against women and girls. So, for example, if we're thinking about transport policies, what things do we need to consider to make men and women, especially women, more safe? So one thing, for example, one strategy that might be considered is having special stops in public buses for women at night, that they can ask for a stop in a place so that they have to walk less to go back home. Or how do we make the city safer for women so that they can still go and pursue their whatever their activities are, and then so mainstreaming and still be safe and avoid the violent situations. We can prevent violence in these ways too. So although violence may be something very targeted and might demand a focused action, and this is a very good example of a focused policy or program, we can also, through gender mainstreaming, do a lot of prevention of these situations.
Excellent, Alicia. Thank you. So we have a lot of questions coming up now. Thank you very much to all for this. As we're on topic, we can divide them, the ones on the topic of gender mainstreaming and the ones about the course. So I would like to ask you now this one about, there's a participant requesting a bit more comments on gender analysis. And also, there's a question about the differences between NGO and gender training and the UN Women approach to training. So we can continue by these two questions, Alicia.
Yeah, thank you. I'll start with the gender analysis. This is a topic that we go into during the course. There are different frameworks for gender analysis. gender analysis is what gives us our categories and tools to analyze a specific situation and understand the different needs of women and men and of the different groups. We no longer talk about just men and women, but within those two groups, there's a wide diversity. One thing that we bring in that it's very important, and it's also linked to the 2030 agenda for gender equality, is intersectionality. And this is what allows us to understand the situations and the context in a much more complex way. So we look, so what we do in the course and what we try to do in the course, and this is what we should always do with gender analysis, is look at the context with a gender lens, with different perspectives. Different frameworks give us different understandings of reality. This is a conceptual, a theoretical tool. And as such, we can, it allows us to go beyond just a description of the situation. And it can give us like further understanding of why certain situations happen and why certain inequalities exist. So in the course, we look at the different frameworks. We look more, we present them all. We think it's important for participants to know them all, but then we choose, depending on what our projects, our policies, objectives are, we also use the one that works, that helps us understand the situation in a better way. So this is one aspect. The UN train also about the differences between an NGO gender training and a UN one. There might be a lot of differences and there might be none. This depends a lot on the training themselves. I mean, it's not a per se training. The UN Women Training Center has a specific approach to training for gender equality, in which we see training as a tool, as a strategy, a way to achieve gender equality. It helps us build skills, competencies. It helps us change attitudes and bring about transformative change to achieve gender equality. We think it's a long-term process. We might have one activity for gender training, but building capacity to achieve gender equality is a long-term process. We think training is a cost-effective and efficient means to build capacity to pursue gender equality. And we think it can be a transformative process in which men and women can understand, can come to their aha moment, to the big change where they see the differences and why gender equality is important and where gender inequality happens. And as UN, we of course have a human rights perspective and use the human rights framework to have a framework, a conceptual framework to guide our training as well. We also integrate the 2030 agenda, the CEDAW conventions, the international frameworks, but this is not a training for the UN. This is a training for anybody working on gender mainstreaming. So we also we first have done an intensive mapping and checking of all the different tools that exist. And we try to present them. I mean, we have selected some that we think are particularly useful and interesting, and that we don't start reinventing, but we can use what is available. And we also consider the different sectors and context in presenting these practical tools. There is one tool that, of course, we use a lot, which is the UN Women Guidance tool on gender mainstreaming. It's widely available in the UN Women page. And this guidance tool provides a basic overview of gender analysis, of gender in development programs and projects, in gender policies, and also organizations. So this is, of course, you might find also all these elements in other trainings, but it's also a training that is not linked to a specific project, which might be something that happens also a lot within NGO or civil society, that we have a specific project, and within that project we have some training. This is a standalone course that can be useful to any stakeholder. And actually, what we try to do is to have as wide, as diverse a group as possible, because we think that this adds value to the course. There's a lot of, because this is a training for gender equality, and this has a gender perspective, all the methods are very participatory, and we understand that participants bringing a wealth of knowledge and that we want, and experiences that we want also to take advantage as much as possible. So horizontal and peer-to-peer learning is also encouraged, both through the approach, but also the specific methods.
Thank you, Alicia. So we have a couple of more questions that are more about the logistics of the course. We have this participant asking about a group discount rate for a group of more of 5 persons. And also, there's another participant asking to finance about opportunities for financing the cost of the face-to-face session. So I believe there's also an opportunity to discuss our scholarships and what do they cover.
Thank you, Leticia. Yes, I think these are very good questions, and other participants will also benefit from this information. We do have discounts for groups, and if there's a group of 5 people from the same organization, the discounts are for groups from the same organization. So if there's a group of 5 from one organization, there can be a discount, and we would actually ask you to submit your applications, register for the course, but also note that you're applying for this discount, and then we will get back to you. We have a discount policy. We also have a scholarship policy that we apply so that we can ensure equality and fairness as much as possible. For the scholarships, discounts are discounts. This is important to highlight. It will never be a waiver of 100% of the whole course. And scholarships are also always partial scholarships. There's a certain profile that scholarship applicants have to comply with. There's a criteria for eligibility. It's all in our webpage. We will be sharing the specific information afterwards with everybody who has attended the webinar and those who have registered for the webinar as well. We have certain criteria that is included is belonging to middle or lower income country, working within an organization, having validation by an organization of the application, being able to apply the learnings of the course afterwards. So because we really, unfortunately, the resources for scholarships are not as high as we would like to, but we do have some resources. So please, when you register, you have to also apply for a scholarship. It's within the registration form. There was some. I see that there is the fee for attend. Okay, this is also important. And you were pointing this out, Leticia.
Thank you, Alicia. Yeah.
Scholarships are partial scholarships for fees, for course fee. The complete course fee is for this course is $1,700 US, 1,700. It includes the online phase, the face-to-face phase, and it includes lunches and coffee breaks also during the face-to-face session. It doesn't include travel and lodging during the face-to-face part. So this is something that also the scholarships will not cover. Our scholarships are just for fees. There's somebody asking when we will be giving the next course. We hope early next year we can come to South America. We're not sure the exact location, but we try to look for hubs where the region can travel easily. So of course, when we will be, this course in Bangkok will be in English. When we come to South America, we will be having the course in Spanish. So probably sometime early next year, in the first part of the year, hopefully we can do this course.
Yes, Alicia, and as you were saying, we have a lot of questions. I just wanted to mention to the audience that we also have available our mainstreaming.tc@unwomen.org, available for all your questions. So anything that we do not arrive to answer in this session, you can answer via that email, and we will be very glad to follow up on any of these issues and answering, because we still have some subject matter questions related to gender analysis. Some of them are very deep. For instance, how is gender analysis integrated into UN Women program areas? And we had some other, if you have any practical tools suggestion for assessing gender perspective in policy, and is gender stereotype justified in gender mainstreaming? And even a general question like, is gender mainstreaming the best strategy to achieve gender equality? That maybe can summarize the whole point of this webinar, Alicia. So I don't know if you can maybe provide an answer to these questions, and we then go back to the logistics to wrap up.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, there's a lot to say about all these questions, and I think we could probably have a webinar about each one of them.
Yes.
UN Women focuses on specific program areas. For each program area, there is a specific gender analysis made. I'm saying that specific because different topics or different areas demand a specific analysis of how the inequalities are presented or are enacted, let's say. Depending if we're talking about political participation of women or leadership, or the participation of women in the private sector, economic empowerment, peace and security. In each context and in each of these program areas, we see inequality, which is in the end the same, but we see how this takes a different, concretizes in a different way, if we can put it like that. I would invite you for this to go more in depth into, in our UN Women webpage. All the different program areas are included and fully described and presented. There's also there are also tools and different knowledge centers and knowledge hubs presented. So this is something that that could bring a little bit more light. But of course, gender analysis is always the starting point to think about inequality and to think about how these inequalities can be addressed. So this is one question that I wanted to start with. Gender stereotypes are included, I mean, are a way in which gender inequalities exist in a way and how they are presented. So I think that stereotypes have to be analyzed and to understand the root causes for these stereotypes and how they can also be addressed. So this comes up, for example, in leadership and of women and participation of women in leadership positions, in which stereotypes many times affect how the possibilities of women participating in certain positions, of having their place in leadership positions in all sectors. As for practical tools for assessing gender perspective in public policies, there are many different matrices and tools for analysis. An analysis of the context would be the first one. One way to look at policy is also gender responsive budgeting, in which we analyze the resources that have been allocated, and we analyze the budget to see how much gender has been included and how much we can respond to the gender objectives. I would definitely suggest and recommend to go to the guidance tool, the UN Women Guidance Tool in Gender Mainstreaming, which includes assessment of gender in public policy. This is available in the UN Women web page. If you go into gender mainstreaming, how we work gender mainstreaming, there you will be able to find, or if you just put in the find the guidance tool on gender mainstreaming, you will find it. I think this is a useful tool to use. And I think, I don't know if there was something else that you had suggested to respond, Leticia?
Well, there's only one more on this, that is this question related to, is this training going to help acquiring a job related to gender mainstreaming?
Well, we definitely hope so. We cannot ensure or assure that there will be a position available for gender mainstream for those who are taking this course, not by UN Women. But I do think from experiences in the past that having a better understanding of gender mainstreaming, even if you're not a gender, of course, if you're a gender specialist, I think that gender mainstreaming is an important topic to have a more in-depth knowledge of and be able to tackle. The course is very practical and tries to provide participants with both the practical and conceptual approaches, so that when they have to analyze a policy from a gender perspective, they also know how to do it and they can have a practical approach. Of course, afterwards, we need to practice and we need to do the analysis many times. But the course also tries to provide with these specific competencies and skills. If you're not a gender specialist and you are more of a sectoral specialist, I think this would be an important course to take as well, because more and more, and this is good, we have to address and include gender issues and gender equality in all projects and programs. If you're working within the UN, there's a very important commitment nowadays, and many both bilateral and multilateral agencies and the civil society, global NGOs, gender is included and is mandated, and needs to be, the gender perspective needs to be considered.
We have a final.
So this is something that we hope that the course can can also bring in.
Thank you, Alicia. This is great. A final couple of questions, again about the logistics of the course. We have one on what's the fee for attending the course, both face-to-face and online. And, and finally, the details of where can more information can be found about the program.
Yes. So as I mentioned before, the fee is 1,700. This in dollars, US dollars. This includes the online phase, the face-to-face session. This includes the tuition, the materials, access to the e-learning campus, of course. And during the face-to-face, the course provides for lunch and for coffee breaks, as well as, of course, all the materials. More information, there's an email, mainstreaming.tc@unwomen.org. This is the specific email for the course. You can write to us and with all the questions. But also if you go to Training Center, I think there's a slide at the end, Training Center, unwomen.org. That's our e-learning campus, and this is where we have also, here it is. Here you can see our URL for our e-learning campus. This is where you can find also more information on on this course on gender mainstreaming, which is a blended course.
Effectively, Alicia. So I would like to thank you, Alicia, again for this session, as well as all of our attendee, and also to remind you that we have that email available, mainstreaming.tc@youngwomen.org, for all the questions that we haven't been able to answer today, and also that this webinar will be available at Young Women Training Center YouTube channel. So thank you all again for attending.
Okay, thank you, Leticia, for your for this good webinar and all your support. Thank you, everybody, for attending. I know that there's some more comments. I see a comment on gender equality still, which is a great way to advance, yes, gender mainstreaming. We also look a little bit onto that experience, and thank you, everybody, for participating today, and feel free to contact us for any other questions or requests for information that you might have.
Thank you.